Hey guys, it's Sunmin and welcome back to Your Money Game. So when it comes to financial education literacy, each of us have our own lessons, each of us have our own heroes. And on top of that, I figured that it's a difficult period right now and we could all use a little bit of inspiration. So here are my heroes and what I've learned from them. So the first hero I wanted to share with you, his name is Tony Robbins or Anthony Robbins. So he's a self-styled life coach or performance coach. But over the years since I've discovered his work from 20 years ago, I've really picked up a lot of stuff which I thought was very useful for me, not just from a financial perspective, but from many different aspects of life. The first concept that I picked up is change your perception or change your procedure. So this line of thinking applies that when you're stuck. So if you're in a situation where you're feeling uncomfortable and things are not really working out from a financial perspective or from a life perspective, you can choose to change either of those two things. So by changing your perception, maybe you're just looking at it in the wrong way. By changing your procedure, that's when you begin to analyze how is it you're approaching that problem or that situation. And then when you realize by pulling either of those two levers, you actually have a sense of control over the problem that you have. The next concept that I picked up was from his book Money Master the Game. I think one of the first things that really jumped out at me was how to think about calculating what you need for retirement. On the surface, this concept might seem simple, but for a lot of us in our 20s and our 30s, it's a concept that never really occurred to us. A lot of us have this vague idea of, wow, I want to be rich or want to reach a certain amount of wealth, but we haven't really put it down into paper. Like, how much do we really need? So by applying that line of thinking, I began to think about what is it in terms of a lifestyle that I wanted, and then calculating the cost of that. And that gave me a measurable goal to work towards for retirement. Now, even though I'm relatively young and retirement is far away, having a clear number in my head helped me put together a plan for myself on how I wanted to reach that goal eventually. My next hero is a really interesting guy, and his name is Tim Ferriss. Now, he's one of those names that you might have stumbled across if you've read or heard about the book, The 4-Hour Workweek. Now, at one point in the mid-2000s, it became really famous, and a lot of people were referring to that book for inspiration and guidance on how to become an entrepreneur or how to build a startup. Now, over the years since, he's been consistently putting out very interesting books. And on top of that, I think the most important resource for me is his podcast, The Tim Ferriss Show. He interviews tons of people there, and I've already picked up so many nuggets of information from it. But here are the top two which I picked out specifically from the 4-Hour Workweek. The first is a concept that he called the Muse. So at the time when I read the book, the concept of being an entrepreneur or a business owner lived in my head as, oh, I gotta start a really big company and that's the only way to do it. It suddenly opened the doors in my head to a new concept of what an entrepreneur could be. So it was really inspiring to know that if I really wanted to become a business owner, I didn't need to think of it from a traditional path. The next is the concept of outsourcing or the value of your time. So I never really entertained the concept of like hiring somebody and why I want to do that. It began to open my eyes to the universe of different type of services out there or different type of people that I can hire to do tasks that I'm not naturally good at, or they can just do it faster and better than I can. And then that would free me up to do much more higher value things. One thing I can't outsource is having you like, subscribe, and click on that bell button because I really appreciate your support. Every little bit helps. Now my next hero, his name is Tab Flynn, and he runs a podcast called Smart Passive Income. And he's one of those guys that's so down to earth that when I first stumbled upon his podcast, I instantly connected with his character. So he was an architect that was fired a long time ago, which sparked the journey of his to become an entrepreneur or a serial entrepreneur. The first concept that I picked up from him is really an inspiration from his own life story. And the lesson was that if bad things happen, it's not the end when it comes to your finances or your money. So the reason why that story was really motivating for me is that I went through something similar where I wasn't really retrenched, but I was burning out at my job and I was afraid to kind of make that leap. So having that inspiration that it is possible, that this guy could do it, and he's an everyday Joe, it gave me that confidence to take the next step and quit my job and start something for myself. The second really important thing that I picked up from him is understanding and appreciating all kinds of different business models. In his Smart Passive Income podcast, he interviews tons of people, and all these guys are regular Joes who've created small businesses from themselves. And through one of those podcasts, it inspired me and led me eventually to creating my own online business at one point in time. That was my Amazon FBA business back in 2014. But that's a story for another time. The next hero I want to talk about is Ramit Sethi. Now he has something in common with Tim Ferriss in that both of them have tacky titled books. And Ramit Sethi's book is called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And since 2007, he's been teaching people how to get better with money. But one of the core concepts that really stood out for me is that you should think about growing your income and not just relying solely on one thing, which is saving. He has this philosophy of living a rich life. So a rich life means different things to each and every one of us. So having that idea of what that rich life is should be something that you strive towards, and growing your income to reach that is one way of doing it rather than limiting your life. The next really important thing that I picked up from him is the art of negotiation. People are kind of shy when it comes to wanting to ask for what they think they deserve. And from Ramit's perspective, having a well thought out, thorough approach that's fair for both parties, it's a really good way to kind of ask for what you want, not in terms of a demand, but putting it across and creating a win-win situation for both parties. But in one of my most memorable incidents, it gave me the guts to go back and negotiate more than double the rate for a project that I was going for at that point in time. And I got it. The next hero has a really funny nickname. He's Mr. Money Mustache. And his real name is Peter Adeny, and he is the godfather or spiritual leader of the FIRE movement, Financial Independence Retire Early. Fans of the FIRE movement would have heard about it, but this concept really changed my life. It's called the 4% rule. So very simply put, if you had a war chest of say $1 million, 4% out of that is $25,000. And if you are able to live within that $25,000 limit, you are able to sustain that $1 million war chest almost indefinitely, meaning it will never run out. Now there's a bit more technicality when it comes to approaching it and actually applying it. So having that 4% rule as a guide and combining that with what I learned from Tony Robbins in terms of how do I think about the dream life that I want and breaking down the cost of that, I suddenly now have a number to work towards for retirement. Now, whether or not I actually reach it and retire early, again, is besides the point. What it's done is that it's given me a framework and a target to work towards. The next thing that I picked up from him is being a valuist. A lot of people have this impression that it's about minimizing all the joys in life till you're bare bones. And that's not really accurate. And what I found is that not everything that I spend on in my life gives me the same amount of happiness. And it helped me to question and find out what it is that really does. But I know what would cause me to be happy is if you click that like, subscribe and bell button as well. And I really hope you got a lot of value out of this video. If you did so, share with your friend and tell me a bit more about what inspires you in terms of your financial journey. So till the next time, thanks for watching and keep playing your own game.